What's up guys, and welcome to PawsBuild. So today we're going to be moving away from the werewolf habitat and building a spooky tavern guest facilities area. So this will just have a couple of drinks areas in it for the guests, but I thought this courtyard I'm laying out now is going to be used in the next habitat, so I thought I should probably build the tavern now as a separate build because it's going to get a bit crazy, I think, with the detail we're going to go into, and it would be too much just to put it into one build. So here I'm just moving some of the trees around so it has a bit more of a backdrop to it. I can kind of picture what it's going to look like. And I'm going to start setting out the first layers. So here's what I originally did, which is way too big. I wasn't really thinking about the scale of the people, and I was just building what looked like a normal building to me. But yeah, when you realize that each layer is like 4 meters, it's way too high, building more of a castle than a tavern. But I do correct this after, so just bear with me. But I'm laying out the initial floor plan. It's actually where I put the door in, I think soon, that I realised that it's too much. And just blocking off that area, because that's just going to be like more scenic than actually functional in this build. It's where the innkeeper might live, or the tavern owner. So yeah, this is when I realised it's just too big. And I moved everything down, moved it a bit smaller. So now I'm going to try and put in some of the roofing. So here I just went with some Arctic planks, just adding a bit of a rim to them as well so they stick out over the buildings. And I wanted to use logs to try and frame the building. But okay, so these logs, there's something about this log in particular. I think it's just not straight, but I thought it was when I started. And I had it was such a pain to place. It was honestly the bane of this whole build, but as you can see, eventually I did manage to get everything aligned properly. So what I'm trying to do here is make like a framework of the logs that we can use to, I'm just going to copy and paste it basically throughout the build to kind of, it makes the roof a bit more realistic. So here, I'm just copying it. I actually realised that this section, it's going to be hidden anyway, but you know, we know it's in there, so that's the important thing. And once I'm done with that, I just needed to fill in the top there, so it's an actual building. And then I put this little decoration on the door, thought I might added a bit of character. I do go back and do a bit more on that later. And here I could not decide on the steepness of the roof. So you see I have a bit of back and forth there with that one. And this is going to be this is kind of where the tavern owner lives, along with that extra side building. This is kind of the bedroom area. So again, not something the guests are going to access, but it's something that needs to be in the building. And I thought that was a better height. I was trying to play with the size of the roofs on all of this and get the height right. So I built this, and I thought it looked a little bit too churchy or too barny. And I went with a 2. Eventually, and here's where I decided it needs to be one higher on this tower section. So I'm now putting in a roof for that one. And this roof gets changed a few times because I just can't make up my mind about which one I want. Again, I thought that was a bit too much like a church. So obviously I would have filled it in there a bit more, but I was just trying to get a look at it initially. So I was quite happy with that. I wanted to move on and make the entrance a bit nicer. So I put this little section outside of the door, and again just trying to decide on the height. I decided to go a little bit lower on this one to keep it a bit more subtle, and built in the sides. I actually have to take out some of these sides just because it was too difficult to build inside the building with the camera. I realized I was just wrestling with the camera more than I was actually building anything. But yeah, so I added some decorations, and I love the Planet Zoo decorations, don't get me wrong, but I did have a problem with the amount of windows that are available. Like, these Arctic windows are great, but there's only 2 of them, or 2 or 3 of them, and they're just not, it just wasn't what I wanted. So I eventually stuck with the ones you can see now, the rounded ones, putting them in. And I actually did something a little bit later, which you'll see with the lights, which makes it a bit more interesting. So you got to stay tuned for that, because I think that's something that can add a lot of character to a build. And now coming inside, okay, I needed to flatten out all the grass first, because that was annoying me. but I started building inside. And my idea here was to have logs lining the roof like I did earlier, but coming up the walls as well. I thought it would just be a nice, you see it in all kinds of video games where it's spooky, and yeah, these logs just aren't straight, so I think I've done a good job, it all looks fine, and then I'm like, oh no, it's the wrong angle, I need to change it. And I did this a few times, just having to adjust the logs back and forth, and eventually I get something I'm happy with. I mean, it's not perfect, but you know, if we're staying true to the kind of real spooky tavern theme, then all these logs aren't going to be perfectly aligned anyway, you know? It's supposed to be a real log, which would be, I guess, kind of bendy in some areas. And this is where I took out some of the back so I could actually see. So once I was semi-happy, I copied that and placed it all along. And I actually think it looks quite good. I think the imperfections add some realism to it in a way. I just wanted to seal off the roof there. I'm not going to do anything with it in this build. I just thought it, you know, it's really just for the story more than actual functionality. So I'm not going to do anything there. I also wanted to add a log to this section to kind of frame it in. And same problems, obviously, same problems again. Thought the log was straight, it wasn't straight. Had to replace it a bunch of times. Eventually got something I was happy with. Let's just move on. So I was happy with what I had. There you go, that's the right level. Once I was happy with that, I copied it all, put it on the other side as well, and thought, there you go, that's done with that. Enough with the logs. Oh, I had to copy them over there as well. But yeah, after this, I was done. Enough with the logs. And I had to add in some roof pieces to this now, just to fill it in. Which again is top tip. If you're building a building, build it layers in. Don't build the outside and then try and build when you're inside the building. It's so much harder than it seems. I thought it'd be fine, and it made this build take way longer than it could have done. So I wanted to make it look a bit more kind of broken, and they've tried to repair it, but they've not done a great job. Maybe there's been a storm. Maybe there's a local presence that's stirring up some of the bad weather or something. A little hint to what the next habitat might be. Leave a comment if you think you know what the next habitat's going to be, but I'm following along the kind of horror theme of the werewolf. So we got this broken roof in there. As you see, I tried to add some of the bedding in because I thought that would be good, but you can't rotate the bedding the right way, so I just had to settle with the wooden scaffolding. And now I'm adding in the actual drinks facilities. I went with juice and smoothies because I thought, you know, who wants water? Who's going to go to the zoo and get water? You want juice or a smoothie. So, and then added in the floor here, and thank God the floor aligned well. That's also something you should do first, is build the floor of your building first. This is more lessons than it is showing you a cool build. It's definitely stuff to be learned. Now, here's where I was trying to create a bar for the bar of the tavern. I just used these small Arctic blocks and put in some of these logs, and I thought it looked quite nice. And I was gonna block this off, but I decided it'd be a bit odd to have it all blocked off, because I thought, well, how's the tavern owner gonna get to their room, you know, where they live? So I just did one side and then put a door in, and again a couple of logs just to make it look nice. I always think I'm done with the logs, but they always come back. And then I thought it was about time that I added some lights, so I was trying to find a spooky lantern type of light, but the closest I could really get was the classic lights, classic wall lamp I think it's called. And I found that when I changed the colour of it to be more of an old, like, you know, golden yellowy colour, it looked a bit more realistic to be like an old-timey lantern. So I just put these along. Here's where I add in the door, and I think it looks quite nice, but no power, of course, so I added another transformer, and I figured I'd just connect that up on the next build, so I don't actually connect that to anything, but for now it gives this tavern power. And I put in some of the benches and bins, and I actually think they're quite nice, the Arctic ones. I think they kind of go with the theme. And now I needed to line everything up to the courtyard I built before. Just some miscellaneous pieces, delete there as well. And once that's lined up, and I think that looks quite happy. Had to move the bins a little bit again, just to make sure they're in the right position. Put in some final lights, and I actually think the tavern looks quite good at that point. And here's where I go on the outside. So by syncing, I didn't know whether the light would come through. What I wanted was lights, because I think it just looks too dark from the outside. But I actually found that putting these lanterns like just kind of buried in the window a little bit, so they're just sticking out, it actually looks quite good. It looks like there's someone home. So I was really happy with that, actually. Then I thought, obviously, if it's a tavern, it's going to need a sign. And another, going along the theme again of the next one, I put a wolf in, made it black, and I thought that would be a good little hint to the next one as well, the next habitat. I played around with fire. I didn't really like it. I just left it at the lanterns because I tried this Asian lantern as well, but it wasn't the same, so I ended up just leaving it. Yeah, just taking that lantern out there. Also tried a lamppost, but again, I thought it was too much on one side. I didn't want to move over to the other side. I just didn't think it looked right, so I just took it all out. And I decided it was time for fences. So after a quick check to see that, as you just saw, there are no good fences to use, the stock fences, I thought I'd just make a fence. So I returned to my favourite wooden logs at this point. And I feel like at this point the wooden logs are just a part of me. Like, I don't remember a time when I wasn't using them in Planet Zoo, honestly. So I was just copying and pasting these along, just adjusting the angles to try and get it to form a little fence around the property here. And I also thought that I didn't just want fences, I wanted a little archway. I didn't want it to kind of end there, so I actually moved that section of logs over and put a little arch in, made of logs, because I just think it adds a little bit of something. Makes you feel like you're entering the building before you actually get there. It gives the building a bit more presence. And then it was just about completing the fence around the side. I did debate putting some barrels in. I really wanted to have some like barrels off to the side and some hay, but I remember there being loads of barrels in Planet Coaster, but there aren't any in Planet Zoo that I could find. And I just figured, it's okay. I'll leave it as it is. Switched to daytime because the nighttime was annoying me when I was trying to place these fences. And putting in the final log for the fence. And boom, it's done. I think it looks a lot better at night, but it's designed to be at night, this zoo. And just placing some trees again. And here, I thought it needs a sign on the tavern, so got to have some wolves. And the final thing I did was just add in some mist like I did in the werewolf build, just to give it a bit more ambiance and spookiness. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please like and subscribe and enjoy the scenery.